Welcome, baseball fans, to the latest episode of Diamond Kings, the top-rated YouTube baseball talk show brought to you by the sports-kings.com media network. I'm your host, David Whitlock, coming from Houston, Texas, as always. It's been a busy first 5 weeks of the season, and we're here to talk about the latest happenings, especially what's going on in Washington right now. You've got Bryce Harper is just on a tear. He's finally living up to his billing. The Minnesota Twins have been a big surprise so far. Nobody really expected them to even contend this year, and they're actually in playoff position. And then we're going to take a little bit of a look at the American League East, one of the more intriguing divisions, because you have a lot of big spenders, some smaller markets, and the standings have been interesting so far. We got at least one Yankees fan with us, so he'll weigh in. Speaking of who's joining me, I appreciate my co-host. First, from Arkport, New York, Kelvin LaPierre. How are you, Kelvin?
Good, enjoying a hot, humid day, kind of like Texas today.
Oh, it is warmed up down here. It's in the 80s. We had some thunderstorms today. A place that knows no humidity, the West Coast. Joining us from there is Lorenzo Mejia from Murrieta, California. How are you, Lorenzo?
I'm doing great. It was a beautiful day out here. It got to 73 degrees, so I had to put on a sweatshirt. You know, I don't deal well with the cold. So, yeah, it was nice out here today.
So jealous. This is the end for Houston. You'll probably see the roof closed on Minute Maid. It's getting to that 80, 85, 89, humid, and this will persist till November. But we're here, not weathermen. We are sportsmen and baseball men. So let's get on with it. The first subject is Bryce Harper. The guy has been on an absolute tear this week. He hit, 6 home runs in 3 games or something like that, or maybe it's 5 home runs. I even lost track. Suddenly, he's living up to the big billing. Meanwhile, the Washington Nationals, despite the Mets' hot start, are nipping at their heels. I think they're 3.5 back. Both the Mets and Nationals winning on Monday night as we talk. No, I'm sorry, the Mets are losing right now with the Cubs. But anyway, is this a turning point for Bryce Harper? Is he now going to establish himself as that Mike Trout of the National League? Take hold, be the dominant guy, take over from McCutchen. We'll start with Lorenzo. What do you think about Bryce Harper's performance and the Washington Nationals? Are they the team to beat again in the National League East?
I think he's doing an excellent job. What's surprising to me is since he's been around for so long, we think he's a lot older than what he really is. The guy's only 22 years old. And I was reading a stat that he has never faced a pitcher that's younger than him in the major leagues. So even though he's been around for 3 or 4 seasons, he's only 22. And he has tremendous upside. He's a great player. I know he came off a little bit as a showboat when he first came up with his eye black all over the place. But the fact that he's putting up numbers, it's incredible. I recently started getting into FanDuel, the daily draft. And I'm addicted to that thing. It's so bad. And Bryce Harper, if he was on, if he had a salary cap number of $20,000, I would still go for Bryce Harper every day. He's such a great player, and he's exciting to watch. So it's good things going on in Washington. A lot of interesting sports things going on in National this week. So yeah, it's a great time to be a Washington Nationals fan, if there's any out there.
That's right. They're still establishing that fan base. They've had such a couple disappointing postseason appearances where they can never get past that first round, despite a talent-laden team, especially with the pitching staff. Bryce Harper, one interesting thing about him is he always seems to get nicked up over the years. He's kind of got like Ken Griffey was, where he's so aggressive in the field, he bangs a knee, he hits something off his knee. He's healthy right now and hitting. Kelvin, what do you think of Bryce Harper? I know, for instance, at one point you said Yannis Cespedes was your guy to build a team around. Are you changing that to Harper yet, or are you still just going to kind of wait and see?
I'm still waiting to see. It's like you just said, Harper's injury prone. It's when's the big injury going to happen? Because it seems like this whole Nationals turnaround started when Bryce Harper started hitting the ball well and consistently and is staying in the lineup and healthy. Last year, the kid played 100 games in the big leagues due to injury, and he hit 13 home runs. He's already at 12, I believe, for the season, and he's staying on the field. If he stays healthy and that Nationals pitching staff stays healthy, if Strasburg gets it together, I think he's got a hamstring strain right now, I think he just read. He's like dealing with an injury in his hamstring. If he gets healthy, look out. The Nationals are going to overtake the Mets, who are struggling since that Yankees Subway Series. I'm looking forward, though, to Bryce Harper if he stays healthy, staying on the field, hitting home runs, and sparking that Nationals lineup.
Yeah, as just a neutral fan, I have no a predisposition like or dislike of the guy. I really like the guy. I saw some things he's done in the clubhouse early in his career, back when he was like 20 years old, and they were struggling to make the playoffs. He established himself as a leader. He seems like a tough guy. He's definitely not a guy that's going to sit out if he's hurt. If anything, he's going to play a little bit too much hurt and potentially hurt his long-term prospects. The kid's arrogant. I mean, it just comes with the fact that he was like, I think he left high school to turn semi-pro so he could get drafted soon. He seemed to be drafted at 17 and the pros by 20. But Lorenzo made a good point of how young he is. I think the day of the first Chris Bryant home run, everybody was gushing, okay, it's the Chris Bryant era. The prospect has finally established himself. And it's like, well, hey, look at the guy who's hit 5 or 6 home runs this week, and it's like a year or two younger. And he's been in the league 3 years, so you can't necessarily. You have to think about that. It's hard to remember how long he's been around, but I do think the Nationals, they got off to a stumbled start. They didn't start as well as they wanted, but I mean, within 5 games at this point and playing like they are, they're definitely the team to beat in the National League East. Some teams like the Marlins have stumbled out of the block. The Braves have been about 500, but you have to look at the Nationals as the team to beat. I still think they win this division by 10 or more games. And we're starting to get into the tip of the iceberg of how good they could really be. They also just got Jason Worth back, not like in the last few days, but he's a guy that was out the first month or so or a few weeks. So good discussion. Switch leagues over to the American League Central. And one of the surprise teams has been the Minnesota Twins. I know I had them pegged for dead last in the division. If you look at teams like the Tigers, the Royals, which are coming off playoff appearances, then you go to teams like the White Sox that are rebuilding and adding talent, teams like the Indians that were right there near the postseason last year. I had the Twins way distant fifth, and here they are sitting in third place and would actually be a wild card team. Paul Molitor, new manager, Torrey Hunter comes back, and that was a surprise move because you figured he'd go to a contender. What do we think about the Twins? Are they for real? Can they do this over the whole season? They have Joe Mauer. They have some good pitching. Phil Hughes. Speaking of Phil Hughes, the former Yankee, we'll start with Kelvin this time. What do you think about the Twins? Could they do it?
I don't think they can do it. They're still developing, getting around. It's just like we've talked about. It's baseball. It's every team's going to go through a run where they're really, really hot, and it seems like Minnesota's going through that right now. I didn't have them pegged as a last place team in that division. I had the White Sox because of Abreu coming off of last year. The kid, every pitcher learns to pitch to him, and it seems like everybody's learned to pitch to him this year. He's hurt. Phil Hughes got his first win last week, I believe. He was 0-4, got his first win last week. Looks like he's going to pick up another one this week. I just think it's just baseball. They're just hitting, timely pitching, and then they'll fade out. It's just like every year you have teams that perform well, and then you get to the break and things fall apart.
Yeah, certainly a long way to go. I always like to cheer for some of the smaller markets to see teams like the Twins become relevant. Even if they could just be relevant to the All-Star break, that would be great. Keep the fan interest there. Keep them in the conversation. Lorenzo, what do you think about the Twins? Are they a playoff contender? Could they even challenge for the American League Central?
You guys are both right on 2 points. The one thing I like that he was saying earlier was about Philip Hughes. Of course, he's good. He's been shaky at best. But the nice thing about it with the second wild card that's involved in the American League or in both leagues now is that you have teams that could be in contention all the way until August and September. Minnesota is a great baseball town. They have a beautiful stadium there at Target Field, and they have a really strong fan base. That's really nice to see. I think Paul Molitor brings a sense of professionalism to the team, and they're doing really well. I'm glad to see that. They also have a lot of overachievers, which are nice to see. I'm a big fan of Kurt Suzuki, West Coast guy, the catcher. Trevor Plouffe is another solid third baseman. He's doing well. And Torrey Hunter, he just brings the veteran leadership to the team, which is nice to see. But yeah, it's really good to see a mid-market team, essentially. They haven't done anything since Tom Kelly days. They didn't do much in the Ron Gardenhire days. So you have to go back to 91, the last time they were in the World Series. So yeah, it's really good to see, and ultimately it'll be good to see if they can hold it. But hopefully they'll be able to compete for a wild card if they're lucky.
Yeah, I think you're about 4 games over 500 now. Any team that's 500 is really in playoff contention, if you think about it, at least until the last few weeks. It's at least staying in the conversation. I think I looked it up, and I was surprised they actually made the playoffs as late as 2010. It might have been like the inaugural wild card when it was a one-game matchup. I don't remember. But the Ron Gardenhire, who is a University of Texas Longhorn, I think his time had worn out. I think moving towards Paul Molitor, as you said, Lorenzo, is a really good move in terms of giving a sense of legitimacy. You've got a guy that's in the Hall of Fame that played a lot of positions, that was a DH, that is an excellent hitter, obviously. And so he could bring that knowledge, get that respect from some of the younger guys. I do think it's also fun to watch. It's always fun to watch Torrey Hunter play. I mean, the guy enjoys playing baseball. He's done some great things on the field. He's done some great things off the field. Obviously, going back to Minnesota was important to him in terms of going back to a place that he established himself and providing some guidance to these younger guys. And I think a lot of what you're seeing right now is between him and Joe Mauer, a couple veterans that can actually impart some wisdom on these guys, and they may hang around. I think part of it is that there's not a lot of teams in the other two divisions that are establishing themselves. The American League West was supposed to be strong. You're supposed to see teams like it was really supposed to be the Angels and A's and Mariners to kind of contend for that division. My Astros are there right now. I don't think they'll stay for the long haul, but a lot of teams had a wild card out of that division. And then in the East, you had teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, of course, the Orioles, who are the defending American League East champs. So you figure wild cards might come from there. If those two divisions don't get teams that emerge, I think you'll see the Twins in it. Otherwise, if teams like the Orioles or the Red Sox recover, or teams like the Angels and Mariners do what we expected them to do, I think you will see the Twins kind of fall. If they could finish 500, maybe 4 or 5 games on a wild card, I think that'd be a good season. I think they've got a young talent base. They've got Byron Buxton coming up and some other young guys. So the future is bright there. This is probably a little too early to predict them in the playoffs, but I think they'll be there eventually 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So speaking of the American League East, that's definitely one of the more intriguing divisions so far. So you've got the New York Yankees that are surging right now. They just beat the Orioles 3 out of 4. They just beat the Blue Jays 2 out of 3. They beat the the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. They beat the Red Sox pretty handily when they played them. So they're kind of dominating that division. They're on top. Some of the other teams are struggling, like the Orioles, like the Red Sox, teams that we expected to do well. The Blue Jays are always in the mix. Is suddenly the Yankees just going to run away with this division? Are they the team that nobody's going to be able to catch? Are they for real? Are they playing over their heads? There's some players like Beltran that are just getting going. Teixeira's batting average isn't there. So we'll start on the West Coast to analyze the East Coast. And Lorenzo this time, what do you make of the American League East? Who do you think is the favorite? Is it the Yankees? And are we back to that Yankees machine that's going to dominate the postseason?
Oh, I love awkward situations in life and in sports, and I also really enjoy controversies. So I want to see A-Rod. I want to see him hit 40 bombs this season. I want him to get 140 RBIs. The fact that he's batting cleanup and he's doing a great job. Hopefully, whether or not he's on steroids or not, it really doesn't matter, but it's a great story. It's a great story to see if they're actually going to pay him the milestones bonus, and it's great to see because the Yankees do what they draw fans. They're one of the teams, along with the Cardinals, the Cubs, that are going to generate fan interest no matter where they go, and it's good for baseball. Dynasties are good for baseball. They're good for all sports. So I really want to see the Yankees do well, especially A-Rod, and it's good to see. But other than that, that's the first time I'll probably ever say in my life that I'm going to be cheering for the Yankees and A-Rod to do well.
What do you make the rest of the division? Can the Orioles and Red Sox recover? Are they done? I mean, the Red Sox spent a ton of money. The Orioles have kind of didn't do much in the offseason, quite frankly, and it's showing.
Well, the nice thing about the Yankees is they have a true ace. They have Pineda out there, and Pineda, do you know what? Even though, once again, another controversial guy with a pine tar on his neck, it's another great story. And with Sabathia, even though Sabathia, he's 0-5, or I think he just won today, he's still not a bad pitcher. If he's a number 3 or even a number 4, he's not bad. So the Yankees definitely have a chance to do it. And the Yankees, they have a limited payroll. If it comes into late July and they're in it, you never know. Cole Hamels might be going to the Yankees. That's the big name that everyone keeps talking about. They have money to spend, and they don't mind raiding their farm system to get a championship. It's good to see, though.
Yeah, they're definitely out in front. So let's go to Kelvin. What do you think about the Yankees? I mean, you're kind of sitting in the catbird seat thinking, hey, we got this division. It's a bunch of also-rans. The team is suddenly looking talented. They've got a fountain of youth for some of the guys. Jacoby Ellsbury is playing extremely well. Brett Gardner has been an underrated guy, if you can believe that, in New York for a couple of years. So is it the Yankees' time?
I wouldn't get to the Yankees' time yet, but they're definitely in a part of their schedule where they're playing 17 straight games against the AL East. Right now they're in the middle of that. They close it up, I believe, the middle of next week in Boston, I believe. I think they close it out against Boston or Toronto. I'm not sure, but they are in the middle of a 17-game stretch against all AL East opponents, so they're in prime position the way they're playing right now. They haven't lost back-to-back games since the second series of the season, which was week 2. Into the season, they haven't lost back-to-back. They've lost one, then they go on, they win a few, then they lose one. So they haven't really gapped that division like you would think that they would, playing 17 straight games against the AL East. You'd think that they'd be able to gap that, but everybody else in the AL East is playing each other too, so one team has to win, one team has to lose. So, and it happens to be that the team that the Yankees need to lose, which I believe is Toronto, is sitting there in second place, and they're winning. They lost tonight to Baltimore 5-2. The Yankees crushed Tampa Bay 11-5. CC Sabathia didn't look good to start the game. Gave up 4 runs early. Settles in. He seems to be the Yankees' most consistent pitcher, getting depth in there, so we don't have to go to the bullpen as often. But Michael Pineda, 16 strikeouts yesterday. It's too short of a Yankee record. It is tied for the record in 7 innings or fewer pitched in a major league game in the past 100 years, I believe. As far as the Red Sox go, they just fired their pitching coach. They're firing their hitting coach. They brought in a new pitching coach. Baltimore, me and my dad predicted this for Baltimore after last season. We go back and look at Baltimore last season in one-run games. They were like 19-2. They seem to be losing the close games this year. They're not hitting. Their pitching hasn't been the same. Jimenez is arguably their second-best pitcher, and he just won tonight. He's 3-2 now. Chen hasn't been the pitcher that they thought he would be coming out. Their bullpen hasn't been as strong. Toronto, it's hit or miss with Toronto. It depends what pitcher you're going to get on any given Sunday. R.A. Dickey's solid one start. The next start he goes out, he gets shell-shocked. You go out, you pitch Burley. Burley pitched a heck of a game the other day against New York and won the game. So it just depends what pitching you're going to get. But as of right now, the Yankees, I'm not going to say they're going to win the East, but they're playing a lot better than everybody thought that they would be, and their pitching staff is held up, considering that they only legitimately have probably 3 solid starters in that rotation.
A-Rod should go get sized up for his championship ring tomorrow. That's how good the Yankees are going to be. And nice thing, too, they have a closer now. They have a solid closer. Who would have thought
hasn't given up a run yet?
Who would have thought at the beginning of the season who would be their closer, that the Yankees and the Mets closers would be the 2 best in baseball? But yeah, championship all the way Yankees. Was it number 27, 28, something like that?
Be 28.
Yes, yeah. Go size them up right now. Hopefully I'm reverse jinxing them.
I was going to say, I detect a hint of sarcasm in that, but not too much.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. I think I agree with you, Calvin, that the Orioles have really been doing it with smoke and mirrors, and losing Nelson Cruz, if you think about like his performance last year, what he's done so far this year, that's kind of a tipping point. There's not that one guy in the lineup. Chris Davis can be that guy. Adam Jones is pretty good, but you needed that third guy. And talent-wise, the only team I see that could surge is the Boston Red Sox. They have the talent. They're just not quite clicking yet. They've been known to make some crazy runs late in the season. So watch the Red Sox. If they don't make a move, I think the Yankees can just out-talent the rest of that division, make the postseason. I'm not ready to size up the rings yet. There's too much. There's a lot of talent in the American League Central with the Tigers and Royals. That would be some good battles. We don't know what the American League West is going to do yet. Like I said, I'd love to see the Astros be there, but I really think that it'll be a team like the Mariners or Angels that eventually emerge with the more talent. And then, of course, you'll have the National League team. Could be the Nationals, could be the Dodgers. Both are off to good starts. So a lot remains to be seen. It's interesting, like Lorenzo said, watching a big market team like the Yankees compete. It brings eyes to TV. It brings eyes to baseball. Baseball in New York has been a little late in the last few years with the Yankees. Other than the whole Jeter retirement thing, there just hasn't been a lot of interest, and the Mets have just been lousy for a decade. So to watch those two teams, who knows? We may see a Subway Series, but to keep both those teams in the pennant race, I think is good for baseball overall. keeps the eyes on the TVs. So I didn't ask you or prep you guys on this question, but we're going to go to a non-baseball question to wrap up the show. And, of course, all the news today is about Tom Brady and the big suspension, 4-game suspension. So I'm going to ask each of you, number one, did he do it? Did he know about it? Number two, is 4 games fair? And number three, does this kill the Patriots playoff drive next year? And we'll start with Lorenzo this time.
Okay, to answer all those questions, 4 games, is it enough? No, he should not have gone 4 games. Realistically, he probably should have gone 8. Belichick should probably have been suspended for the year. If you look at it compared to Bountygate with the Saints, they got off easy. Did Tom Brady know about it? Of course he knew about it. He's not an idiot. And with Sean Payton, when they punished him, it's because he turned his head the other way. Belichick knows everything that goes on. Belichick knows how long people's fingernails are on the team. He knows everything. So you don't think he knew about the actual balls that are actually being played with? He knows. And you know what? Does it tarnish the legacy? Not at all. Because here's the way I look at it. When it comes to, like, especially to NCAA, when they have the wins revoked, you cannot take away the memories. You cannot take away their recruitment. So now you have bandwagon fans all across the country that are, I've always been a Patriots fan since the Drew Bledsoe days, even though they have a brand new Gronkowski jersey. Those are the people that we deal with, especially in Southern California. We have a lot of bandwagon fans around here because there is no hometown team.
That's right.
So I have so many friends that are Patriots fans, mainly because of Tom Brady. Tom Brady and Belichick, their Super Bowls, the 4 Super Bowls that they've won, it's no matter what happens, they're going to be okay. They're going to be 3. They're going to end up 1-3. They're still going to make the playoffs. They're still going to have their run, and it's not going to hurt them that much. It's good though. It's good to see, and yeah, so it's very interesting. But 4 games is definitely not enough.
Now, I think a good analogy to the Bounty Gate, particularly what happened to that head coach, and that, Brady, I don't know why he was singled out. I guess because the report said that he knew about it. I feel like Jack Nicholson, did you authorize the hit? Did you authorize it or not? It remains to be seen. Nobody will ever know. I think if the championship's tainted. But before I ramble on more, Kelvin, the Brady Gate, Deflate Gate, should he be suspended? Should it be longer? Should he not be suspended?
Well, he should be suspended. Should be longer because look at what's going on every time New England seems to be in Super Bowl contention. It seems like we have some sort of Spygate, we have Deflategate, we have some sort of thing where, holy crap. Sorry, we got a huge thunderstorm going on right here. It seems like we have something always going on with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick when they're in Super Bowl contention. It's something comes up during the year where they go on and win the Super Bowl. And I got this through a text message when I was taking my chemistry final that he was suspended for 4 games. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, he only got 4 games, but you have Sean Payton get suspended for a year. Like Lorenzo said, you have Sean Payton suspended for a year. You basically ban their defensive coordinator until he gets reinstated after the season. So basically he lost a year, and now he's back in St. Louis. So you give Tom Brady 4. I get the fact that he's a superstar. He draws fans. He puts people in seats in away games. He puts an eye on the game. And for him to not cooperate fully with the NFL in this, not giving up text messages, emails, and all that other stuff to the NFL, if he would have fully cooperated, I guarantee you his suspension would have been 2 games. But since he didn't cooperate, he gets 4. He is appealing this. Does it get reduced? I don't think it does. I think it sticks at 4, and you're going to see it stick at 4. And Patriots fans everywhere, you already see it on Facebook. You log in, and all I see are my Patriot fan friends sitting there. Oh, Tom Brady's innocent. He didn't do anything. Deflating a football doesn't do anything. I mean, does it do anything? I don't know. I don't play football. But it obviously did something because they won by 38 points against Indianapolis in that rainy, cold game. And they're the ones who fixed the footballs for their team, and then the Indianapolis Colts bring their own football, and their football seemed fine. Didn't have an issue with them. But 11 out of 12 footballs deflated under the league rule, PSI-wise, come on. They knew something was up. They did it intentionally. He should be gone longer. Is 4 games enough? That's all he's going to get. We can't complain about it because the NFL actually did something. It's like Josh Gordon smokes weed, gets suspended for a year. Tom Brady cheats, wins the Super Bowl, gets 4.
It's definitely questionable, and the problem I have with it is when we tune in as football fans or as any sports fans, we expect the game to be fair. We expect the game to be fair for both teams. We understand that it's not always that way, but then to have, it's basically the integrity of the game, that there's something out there that favors one team over another that is against the rules, and it's not just one guy quirking a bat or one guy doing steroids. It's an entire team that's catching a ball that's been messed with. That being said, 4 games doesn't sound like a lot, but if you translate it to other sports, it'd be like what a baseball player being suspended for 40 games. I mean, how many times do you see a 40-game suspension for something like steroids or scuffing a ball or a cork bat? It's usually 10, 20, 25 games. Same with basketball. You'd be talking 20 games. How many times do you see 20-game suspensions? You usually see 5, 6, 8, 10 games. That being said, I think 4 games is appropriate. That's consistent with some other things that the NFL has done in terms of drug suspensions. I think, the Patriots, they can kind of, that division shuffled a little bit with some head coaching changes, but I think that they will be able to survive those 4 games. If Brady's still as good as he's always been, they'll win the division, they'll get to the playoffs. Maybe it costs them home field. Maybe they have to go to Indianapolis this next year to play in the championship game. Maybe they have to go to Denver, someplace like that, because of that 1 or 2 games that they lose. If that's the case, then I think justice was served. They have to go on the road, play a team like Denver where they lost 2 championship games ago, or more fitting go to Indianapolis if the Colts are able to do it. Just picking teams off the top of my head. So interesting happens. Go ahead, Lorenzo.
But to your point, as far as the integrity issue, once the integrity of sports is gone, sports in general is going to be done. And that's what we're trying to make sure it doesn't happen, because there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that say, oh, the ref was paid off. I hate that when people say, oh, the ref was paid off. And I'm like, do you realize what would really happen to the sport, to any sport, if it actually came out that the refs were paid off or somebody was playing not to their full capability? It would ruin sports altogether. That's the reason why people like sports, is because you assume that everyone's on a level playing field. And once that's gone, the sports in general is done. And we don't want to see that. So I think that's the reason why he only came down 4 games. But yeah, it should have been longer.
Yeah, a great point, and that was the whole 1919 Black Sox scandal. I mean, they needed a commissioner to clean it up because the game was just getting fixed, and people that were watching it weren't getting the real deal. There was players throwing the game. You had his name escapes me, but that NBA referee a few years ago that had been shown to associate with gamblers, and we've all seen NBA games, and if you watch an NBA game, you're always convinced your team's getting the raw end of calls. And it goes both ways, and I think it's just because NBA refereeing is just arbitrary. I mean, they decide to call a foul when they feel like it, and certainly you can do statistics and all that. But
that's the hardest sport to referee by far, because the players are so big and so fast, and all the calls are pretty much judgmental calls. Blocking, charging, you really don't know exactly where the call is going to be coming from. And they do have an influence on calling more fouls to increase the line, the over-under. And you watch, if anything would come out, even if it was just like one rogue referee, it was Donaghy that decided to do that, it would have a huge effect on sports, and we don't want to see that. But basketball, for sure, that would be the one sport where you can get away with it the easiest. Because you remember, there's only 5 people on the team, on the court at the same time. So you get a ref that's doing that, it can totally happen. Baseball, I think it'd be a lot harder to do, because as it is, there's a lot of failure in baseball. So if you see somebody go into a slump, you wouldn't really know. You couldn't really tell. But yes, basketball by far is the hardest one.
And that was the thing of the Black Sox scandal, was how hard was it to tell? I mean, Shoeless Joe was part of it that batted, 375 in that World Series, and there was other guys that was clear didn't play as well. I will let Kelvin end because he is an umpire for minor league, so I'm sure he's been bribed by many a coach. What are your final thoughts on refereeing and sports and all that?
Well, let's go to the modern age of technology. You have cameras everywhere. You're reviewed every year. You get a review from the head coaches. You get a review from everybody. You get reviewed on everything. Your calls, your strike zone, your out calls, your consistency, everything. So if your grades are horrible, you stay down. And look at MLB. Their umpires are top-notch. They're the most scrutinized, but yet they're the most consistent when it comes to making the right call. Do they get calls wrong? Yes. That's why they have replay now. Do I get calls wrong? Yeah. Is my strike zone always the same as it was the game before? No. But it's why you get reviewed. And once you stop reviewing umpires and giving grading to umpires and helping them improve, or helping any referee in that matter improve, that's when sports is going to diminish. You're not going to have that consistency, and that's why sports are the way they are. When it comes to basketball, yes, it's harder to officiate. Look at the game yesterday against Cleveland and Chicago. LeBron James drives with 8 seconds left down the floor, and Noah rapes him underneath the basket. They don't call foul. But granted, LeBron hits that game winner in the corner with 1.5 seconds left, which we're going to go back. They're going to get that timeout. Not going to be able to go over and set up a play for this. And then another thing about the whole Tom Brady thing is the integrity of the game. Look what baseball did to Pete Rose when he was gambling on baseball. That's integrity of the game. He's changing the integrity because he's gambling on the game. He fixed it himself so he could perform the way he wanted to. So it's kind of the same thing with Brady. Brady deflates the ball. It's giving himself a little bit of an edge. How is it not the same? How is he not getting more games? And Pete Rose is banned for life.
Right, and Pete Rose just supposedly bet on baseball, never bet against the Reds per se, which he had a game and influencer. He may have bet for the Reds, who knows? Then you get into what he knew. But good discussion, guys. I appreciate the thoughts. Thank you all for watching another week of Diamond Kings. We'll touch in next week with the latest baseball happenings. Until then, have a great week.